we're going to start over again. To everybody who is watching on YouTube, I apologize. We had some technical difficulties getting it started, but I understand we're ready to go. So I'm going to start over again and call the meeting to order at 7:14 p.m. And while we were waiting, we did the Pledge of Allegiance, so I don't think we need to do that again. Public comment is open. If people want to call during public comment, the number is posted on the agenda. It's 860-465-2513. They can call in now, or they can call in at the end of the meeting during the second public comment. And I just want to say, for the people who are watching us on YouTube, we are sitting here without masks because under the new rules, we are allowed to do so if everybody in the room is vaccinated and when there are no students present in the school. So it's an evening meeting. We're here at the High School Media Center. There are no students present, and everybody in this room is vaccinated. But members of the public may show up in person to our meetings moving forward. If you are not vaccinated, you will be required to wear a mask at our meetings. I just want to say that for the public so they wonder why we're all sitting here without our masks on. And I want to acknowledge this is the first public full board meeting in person that we've had since the end of the summer of 2020. So it's nice to see everybody here again, and thank you for the administrator, the central office team who's here. Did anybody call in for public comment? Thank you, Janet. So we'll just move on. Approval of the Board of Education meeting minutes for June 23rd, 2021. I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion made by Katina, seconded by Ilda. Is there any discussion on the minutes? So we don't need to take a roll call vote anymore, do we? We can just have people raise their hands. Okay, all those in favor raise their hands. Any opposed? Any abstentions? One abstention. Thank you very much. And now we're on to the superintendent's reports.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think you can hear me, right, with the new microphone? The first thing in my report is just to let the board know, a little closer, okay. Is just to let the board know that we are we just completed our third day of the summer programming. It has been going very well. I asked the summer school coordinators to send me an email today with strengths and positives and things that can be done to improve. All of them had suggested that the strengths so far are attendance. The students are showing up, and there's quite a few of them, as you know, from the report in the board packet, and student engagement. So that was very nice to hear. In all programs, we actually have more students in the credit recovery program for Windham High School than I originally reported. I reported 97 students, and there's a total of 125. So excellent news. We want them to earn their credits and graduate on time. We had some issues with dismissal the first day and apologized to families through social media. We think we've ironed out most of those dismissal issues, which are common at the beginning of any school year, and we're working on trying to make sure that that runs smoothly. But it's nice to hear, and we're actually going to post some pictures tomorrow. Now, you can't see their smiling faces because they are wearing masks as required, but there are many happy children in summer school right now, so I want to share those pictures with everyone. Any questions about summer school or summer programming? Okay. The only other thing in my report was just to let the board know that the high school is going to be taking part in the College Advising Corps, a partnership between the University of Connecticut and the State Department of Education. And the goal is to increase the number of students, low-income students who are first generation and often underrepresented, to get them to complete higher ed, to complete college. So definitely a worthy cause and one that fits well in Windham. And I did let the board know of the criteria that was used by the State Department of Ed to qualify Windham High School, and that is the rate of the FAFSA, which is the financial aid packet, the number of students who have enrolled in college, and they used 2019 on purpose because of COVID, threw off last year's data, and the class size. I guess you had to fit, our senior class fits within their 100 to 300 range in terms of the number of students who graduate. So we're looking forward to this partnership. It has not officially started yet, but it will place a CAC representative in our school. We have to give them space. And we're told that they are trained, they go through a special training that allows them to connect with our students and put our students in a better position to understand what is offered at college and how to help them get through. So we're looking forward to this partnership. And I know that Pam Cavanaugh, Principal Cavanaugh, is very excited. We were both involved in the webinar that went on with the state and the other districts participating. So looking forward to that. I don't know if there's any questions about that program. Okay, yes.
I just have a quick question. Is this CAC rep in the school full-time?
So that's a great question. I'm going to have to get you more information on that. I know that they asked for them to have their own dedicated space, so I would imagine it could be up to full-time, but let me find out specifically how many hours.
I meant to ask when I was at central office the other day, what is the IND 10 for class of 2019 on the chart, the district selection chart? I don't know what IND 10 stands for.
In the presentation?
Yep. Yes, I'm sorry, I shouldn't yep you. On page 8 of the presentation, or of our packet. It's page 8 of our packet, I'm pretty sure. I don't know what yeah.
Oh, indicator 10 on the school accountability index. What is that indicator, Neil? There's so many of them, but he'll look it up for us.
I'll look it up.
The rate, it comes from the way they measure it at the State Department of Ed in our accountability index. So indicator 10, which it's got to measure something to do with college completion, or
It's likely like college.
the 2 to 4 year.
Post-secondary entrance.
Yep.
But I'll double check.
He'll get the exact wording, but it's,
I
Yeah.
noticed that we were the lowest on that. and I
Yes, we
didn't know
are.
If that's a good thing or a bad thing, it was hard to
that's
say.
not a good thing.
That's what I assumed, but
It is
I
not a good
try never
thing.
to assume those things.
which is
so.
why we were happy when they said, would you like to be a part of this partnership? And we said, yes.
Katina, and then Mary?
Yes, Dr. Youngberg, will the students have opportunities to go into the different universities, get to know, like the campus, as
So-
they participate in this program?
To be perfectly honest, I don't know all the details about the program, just that we said yes to it, to being on board for having the CIAC advisor be in our building and be a part of the process. I think those things have to happen whether or not we're in this program anyway. They need to be taken to college campuses and shown, what's out there. But I can get more details. We basically had to say yes or no. Could we commit by a certain date in order for them to move forward with the process? So there's probably many more questions to be answered about it, but I'm excited that we have the opportunity. But I will find out if they can give us more details about what it will look like for our kiddos. Mm-hmm.
Mary?
Yeah, I just noticed it does say that the advisors are full-time.
Oh, there
But
you go.
I did want to ask, is higher ed still in the district?
We have not used higher ed, at least not during the COVID year. It's hard to say.
Okay.
I just have one more question. I think it's very exciting. So I'm assuming that the person who is this person will work closely with the people on staff in the school, in the high school, who would normally be advising students about college.
The
related
guidance
things.
department.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, that's how it works.
The indicator is 10, right? So that's post-secondary entrance, and that's for the year 2018. It's graduating class. And I remember there was an issue. I kind of questioned that number because it looked a little lower for us than it had been in past years. But that's not based on acceptance rate, but it's based on a year later who attended college for a full year. I'll just say it's an interesting metric.
Thanks, Neil.
Are there any other questions for the superintendent while we're on her reports? Okay, thank you very much. I appreciated getting the whole presentation in our packets. So now we're on to committee reports, and unfortunately, Mark is not here with us this evening. And I don't know whether there's somebody else who wants to report on finance and audit. We're having a meeting on the 28th. Will be the next meeting at 5:30 p.m., I think, or 6. I'm not sure. Well, oh, okay. Yeah, I know we haven't met since our last meeting, but didn't remember whether it was 5:30 or 6 p.m. But we will be having a finance and audit committee meeting on the 28th. Reed has been working very hard to close out the year, and we wanted to wait and meet when we had the most complete information. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah. And is there anything else that we should be reporting on, Rita? Don't want to put you on the spot, but okay. Any questions on finance and audit? Okay, school planning and design. Is there anything to report, Tracy?
We didn't meet last week.
Thank you. Policy committee. Is there anything to report, Ilda?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
The Policy Committee, at the direction of the Board of Education, requested that the district retain Shipman and Goodman. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. To do an audit of the board's present policy manual. The audit was completed by the attorneys on June 22nd, 2021. The cost of the review process was $3,500. Shipman and Goodman will charge an annual fee of $1,000 to maintain the manual. At the present time, the district utilizes CABE at the cost of $18,000 per year, but this also includes maintaining the manual in its online version, in addition to providing sample policies. The next step in the process is to sort the present policy manual by those policies that are required by law and deemed necessary. After that, the remaining policies will be forwarded to the proper departments to either be revised as recommended by Shipman and Goodman, retained because they are pertinent to the Windham School District, or removed. The committee will then make a determination as to whether the present policy manual should be repealed in its entirety and replaced by a new manual, or if the manual should just be updated. The staff is anticipating completing the process to present to the policy committee at its September meeting. The end.
That's
Thank you.
very exciting, and just for the people who are watching this, Shipman and Goodwin is our legal counsel. And Katina, looks like you wanted to say something? Just looked like you were bursting out of your seat.
Well, I can say that this is a dream come through. I have stated that because they will be updated, it will save us money. And just the ones that are absolutely mandated, and then the ones we decide that are particular to Windham will be included. So it's like a new era on the policy, and that's our job, as part of our job as a board. So I appreciate Dr. Youngberg and team for listening to us. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? So if they're going to be presenting any recommendations to you at the September meeting, we should expect something maybe at our October meeting, or some sort of report? Okay.
Yes.
Well, make sure we don't pass that over. Thanks. October, I'm going to write down. Okay, Executive Committee, we did not have a meeting since our last meeting, although there were two executive type issues I wanted to just update my fellow board members on. One is that several of you have not yet let me know what your availability is for the 2 days of the retreat, which are on Friday, the 10th of September, and Saturday, the 11th of September are on our calendars. About half of you have let me know what your availability is. Thank you very much. It would be helpful if the people who haven't, you don't have to let me know now, but if people who haven't will let me know so that we can plan what time on Friday we will be starting the retreat and ending the retreat. Paula?
Right, that's just a question I had, whether we expect Friday to be a full day or a
As
partial
much of the day as we can fit in. So we're waiting to hear back from everybody. The people I have heard from so far are saying that they could meet anytime, like from midday on, and there's been a request that we not go into the evening on Friday by one member that's replied to me. So I still want to hear back from the other 4 members I haven't heard from so that we can plan. I've heard from 4, I haven't heard from 4. And at this point, everybody's available who has replied is available anytime on Saturday. But it really, the timing, you know, if we only have 3 hours together on Friday or something like that, then that would determine what agenda items get put that day versus items that need a longer chunk of time. Anything you want to add to that, Dr. Youngberg? No? Okay, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, whatever the board decides, my team and I will work with whatever's going to work with the team.
And the other thing I want to mention is that the negotiations for the teacher's contract will open up in September, correct? September.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So we will be looking for board representation in that process. So you should speak to me if you're interested in that. And along those lines, I know there have been questions about where we are with the unanimous decision that the board made earlier this year to request that the town look into the possibility of exploring, look into the details of the state employee health plan, which is open to municipalities and boards of ed. I reached out to the town manager and the leader of the council, and I've heard back from the town manager. I would characterize it as not greatly enthusiastic about looking into this option. We are very committed. I've talked with Mark and with Dr. Youngberg, Mark Doyle and Dr. Youngberg. We're very committed to working the best we can with the town on looking into the option. To be clear, the Board of Ed could do this on their own. But because we are in the self-insured plan with the town, we want to make sure that we're trying to proceed together to explore the options, and then each body can make their own decision, or hopefully we could make a decision together. So that's going to be worked out. At this point, it doesn't look like anything that we'll have in place would be ready to be started if we decided we wanted to pursue something, with all the work that would need to be done to move out of a self-insured plan that we're running with the town and the Board of Ed right now and move into a new plan, and also get the bargaining units from the different unions to agree to the changes. I don't see that this is going to be a fast thing, that this would be something that we could do possibly in next year when we start a new fiscal year. But heaven knows, when we take a look at the figures, we may feel differently. So one thing I want to just say for people who are wondering why we would even do this is I want to remind people that this is not an ideological thing, like where some people believe this is what we should be doing and we shouldn't be self-insured. The reason we voted on this, I want to remind us all, was that it's a budgetary issue. The importance of being able to know on a year-to-year basis that we would be facing much more dependable rate increases year to year if we were in a bigger plan with 800,000 lives in it versus a plan that has 1,000 lives in it. And also, there are changes that have been made to the state plan, and that includes plan design changes, and the way the rates are set are now based on what county you're in, not statewide. So in the northeast corner of the state, where the costs are lower than they are, say, in Fairfield County, there's going to be a noticeable difference in the rates that we're going to get than those that were found 3 years ago when the town looked into this. So, and then there's the whole issue of retention and happiness of staff, whether or not they want to have a high deductible health plan or they want to have the same kind of plan that the state employees have, which has things like no copays for maintenance of your chronic illnesses and things like that. So studies have shown that high deductible health plans actually cost more in the long run because people delay getting care because they don't want to spend down the deductible until it's absolutely necessary. So I just want to put this out there that we're working on this. There's a lot of misconception about why we're looking into this. We're just looking into this as an option. We want to explore it. And so if we are negotiating contracts this year, I think we want to make sure we mention that we're looking into this and get agreement that they would reopen the contract and consider this when the time came that there was something to present to them, if we decided we wanted to. Are there any questions about that? I know Tracy had reached out to me about that, so.
I've been sitting, we have a really fabulous team, and we have a great thing going right now. Stephanie, Jessica Ritter, and I, and Stephanie Garrett, who's the director of HR. And every bargaining unit, I think, so far, we just had an opener today with the custodians, so we haven't had conversations with them, have asked us about moving to a non-high deductible or moving to the state plan and getting off the town plan. So that's why I reached out to you again, because when we made the unanimous decision to do that, like nothing, I hadn't heard anything up until that point. I didn't doubt there was behind the scenes work going on, but everyone has asked us, and I think everyone has put an opener in their contract saying that they would be willing to come back to the table to have that conversation if and when a decision was made. So I think that it's important we keep it on the table and make sure people know that we're working on it. We just haven't said, okay, yeah, that's a good idea, and we've moved on, but also that they're really interested, and that's why I tried to relay that kind of interest to you too, that people are asking me in negotiations, and they're putting it as one of their offers, you know, one of their bargaining chips is that, you know, what happens if we move to this, and can we? And we don't have that decision yet, but I want to make sure that ball just keeps rolling and it doesn't pause, so.
We're going to keep moving on it. And the other thing I wanted to add is that the comptroller's office, the state comptroller, runs the program, administers the program, and they did a press statement last week which announced a bunch of new municipalities and Board of Ed joining, including 3 out here in eastern Connecticut. Columbia just joined, Thompson just joined, and Canterbury just joined. So there are more and more towns that are seeing this as an option.
I wanted to just thank Tracy Lambert for being a part of all the negotiations. It is a dream team, like you discussed, so I appreciate that. I also wanted to recognize Katina for being a part of the Board of Ed's search for the North Windham, the new principal of North Windham School, so I thank you both for being involved.
I have a question. Since the response you have gotten so far, did I hear you say was less than enthusiastic? Okay, and since we have the fact that we can do this in our own, is there any possibility of exploring what would happen, or what do we need to do to have this ready for negotiations in September if we are to do it by ourselves?
It won't be ready for negotiations in September. It will be ready when the right time is to switch over a plan, right? We already just started a new year, And it might
Okay.
make most sense to start in the new fiscal year next year.
Okay.
But what the goal is to get the numbers in the next month or two so that we have the information and can do what we need to do. And just because I indicated that there wasn't a great deal of enthusiasm from the town manager, I think he's basing his information on what happened when they looked into this before, and it wasn't that helpful. So I think he just doesn't know that there's new information. I will assure you that I'm working with the town council directly on this, and I've also talked to the Board of Finance chair. So we're working it through. It would be ideal if all the lives in the town and the Board of Ed could do it together, but there's nothing requiring us to do it with them if we decide to go out on our own. And I've confirmed that with the comptroller's office.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Lynn?
Yes.
To let you know, I've already had a conversation with Jessica and Stephanie. I didn't know I was supposed to have it with you as well, to be on the teachers negotiating
Okay.
team. I hope that's okay with you.
Absolutely, yes. Anybody who has the time to do that, and if there are if there's another board member who's interested, please speak up, okay?
It's not glamorous. We get stuck in those windowless rooms back there for hours and hours and hours, but it's fun, and I think it's productive, and I appreciate the people that I get to work with, not just Jessica and Stephanie, but the people we're negotiating with. I think they appreciate seeing a board face on it, and I would welcome anybody else who wanted to join, but some days it's hours of just sitting there waiting for the person to come back in with information, so. But no, it's a good time, and I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about steps and insurance and pensions and stipends, and yeah, it's been fun.
Thank you. Is there any report for from the Ad Hoc Elementary School Consolidation Committee? Paula?
We haven't met. We had decided not to meet. We'll continue to do. I hit it again. I'm used to holding it down. We decided that we're going to hold off on our school tours until the fall. For the summer, we are continuing to communicate with Friar Associates to gather more information. And I believe we have a couple of meetings tomorrow. Again, more informational things that I will share with the committee after tomorrow.
So to be clear for the members of the public, they're going to
decisions.
start really meeting in the fall after we have the report.
Right.
I know there's been some sort of information out there that decisions are being made now, and they're not. Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Paula? Okay. Now, we wanted to spend a little time talking about COVID. There's a lot of information and opinions swirling around about what we should be requiring in our schools, and I asked Dr. Youngberg if she would fill us in on the latest and how decisions will be made about the fall reopening.
And I had actually hoped that I was going to be able to share some new information with everyone tonight, because I was originally invited to the they started up the weekly meetings with the State Department of Ed and the Department of Public Health, and those are scheduled on Tuesday mornings from 8 to 9. But yesterday, or the day before yesterday, they canceled yesterday's meeting. And they're still working, the State Department of Ed and the Department of Public Health are still working on how they're going to respond to the required mitigation strategies for the fall. They were thrown off, I think, by the CDC coming out and making their statement over the weekend, so they need a little more time to process. As it stands right now, and we're running a summer school, so in the summer school, the students are required and the staff are required to wear masks. That's part of what's in place from the governor's office and the State Department of Public Health. From our a safe return to in-person instruction, the plan that's on our website available for the public to read, we had to actually outline each of the mitigation strategies that would be in place in the fall. So we know right now the universal wearing of masks is in place. The piece about social distancing, we won't have social distancing, at least not 6 feet, because we have agreed that the students are coming back in person in the fall, and we can't have them all in the building and still maintain 6 feet. CDC says to try to maintain 3 feet. That's what they're requiring, and I think we can do that. That's basically what we had in the building that had the most students in it last year during COVID, which was Barrows STEM Academy. We had just about 3 feet social distancing in all the classes. So that'll continue unless the state tells us to do something different. But right now, even on the meeting today, our superintendent's meeting today, it was brought up that social distancing can't be one of the mitigation strategies if the goal is for the schools to be filled with students and for everyone to be back in person and not to offer a full-time virtual option. So they sort of said that will be a mitigation strategy we won't be following in the fall. We're going to continue with our hand washing and, making sure students are using what they call respiratory etiquette, right? We want them to not, to use their elbows and, all the things we teach kids from the time they're small. So we're going to continue with hand washing and hand sanitizing and trying not to pass on any germs that way. We are going to continue to have protocols for cleaning and maintaining the school buildings. Dawn's so excited to hear this. The State Department of Public Health has actually shared with superintendents that there's very little evidence in all of the research projects they've done now, because they had 15 months or so to actually study the virus, that the virus is passed from surfaces. So they basically told us back in the spring that we didn't have to spend as much time doing all the disinfecting and the cleaning as we were, because that's not where the virus is spreading. It spreads person to person, which is why there's the big argument about whether we should be wearing masks, right? But we will obviously maintain clean buildings, and that's not only surface cleaning, but also ventilation, make sure that it's healthy in terms of ventilation. So we're going to move forward on that. But I did let Dawn know that I didn't think we had to spend as much time disinfecting and continually washing the same surfaces, because that's what the State Department of Public Health said was something we could ease up on. Again, that's not where it was being transmitted. Right now, the next little box is contact tracing. And last time we heard, and I know Suzanne's smiling because she's on all these calls with us, she supervises the nurses, so she's directly involved in the process. And the last time we heard was that they were going to continue contact tracing, which made us all just want to put our heads down. Obviously, contact tracing is a process that helps try to keep the community as safe as possible. But we know from spitting out our own data that we sent a lot of kids and staff members home in quarantine because they were considered close contacts, but they didn't test positive for the virus. So it was very frustrating to us. But we were following what the State Department of Ed and the Department of Public Health set out for us. So as it stands right now, that will be in place next year unless they tell us something different. And we are not going to be doing official screening and testing in our schools. We didn't do it last year, and so I don't want to start doing something different. I don't want to add another thing. I think it's pretty complicated as it is right now, and there's 2 camps. There may even be 3 camps, but there's definitely a divide amongst the public, so we don't need to cause any more divisions, at least as far as I'm concerned. And obviously, we're continuing to try to make vaccinations available to as many people as possible. That's not to say that you have to be vaccinated to attend our schools. It's not a requirement to attend our schools, but if you follow the science, vaccination is reducing the spread of the virus. So we're trying to make vaccine available to as many people who opt to have the vaccine. And obviously, as with anything, if there needs to be special accommodations made for any students to follow along, whether it's wearing a mask or following any of the mitigation strategies, we make those accommodations based on student needs. So there's definitely, as mentioned earlier, there's definitely some things happening politically because there are sort of 2 camps around the masks. And it's going to be difficult for us to move through this, but as it stands right now, we're a school system that works under the auspices of the Connecticut State Department of Ed, and the State Department of Public Health is working in collaboration with the State Department of Ed. So it's my feeling that we continue to follow what the State Department of Ed tells us to do. And, I don't know how the board members feel, and I'm happy to listen to how you feel, but that's my sense, because if we step out from where the Connecticut State Department of Ed is telling us, we could put ourselves into some dangerous waters, right? And we could end up liable for something that, you know, so that's my feeling. I would love to hear where you all stand on it, but that's where it is, and I don't have any new information. I hope that on our next meeting on Tuesday morning, that they share some direction for us, because I can tell you, and Suzanne knows from listening, the superintendents are beyond frustrated that we're not getting directions, because we're the ones dealing with the public, basically saying they're unhappy about what's happening. And we hear them loud and clear, and I keep trying to let the parents know it's not our decision. We're following what the directives we've been given. So, but it's a difficult place to be. So, I see Katina wants to jump in.
I believe totally that we should follow what the Department of Education in conjunction with the Department of Health states. I do not know if we have a plan or some sort of guide. If a parent tries to come in the school and is not wearing a mask, or if a student refuses to wear a mask, where that would lead us. So that I would like clarity on, but definitely we should do what the Department of Health says.
So we do actually have a plan or procedure for students that refuse, but I have to tell you, it didn't really happen. The students were amazingly compliant around the mask wearing. I even think we gave them very lengthy mask breaks. I'm not even sure that some of those things were even necessary. They just did an amazing job. They're resilient. They go with the flow. They are really much more flexible than adults are. So we didn't have any issues with that, but we do have a procedure. We don't allow, if the mask mandate's in place, you're not allowed to come in the building without a mask. It's not my personality to say what has to happen. If you refuse to put a mask on, you're not going to be allowed into the building. And we have security systems in all of our buildings. I guess if it got out of hand, it would be a call to the police department. But, I'm hoping that the public would understand that we're really just following directives and not get angry with the schools, because it's not the school's fault. So that's where we are with that.
I think last year we had a lot of decision-making to do, and I did it again. Can't get away from those habits, right, Brandon? And we followed the guidelines of the CDC, the State Department of Health, and I don't think we went wrong. So I think that we should continue in that line. I was going to mention that I see children wearing their masks, and I mean, for some it's different and it's unique. And as you said, the children are compliant, and I think that's a very good sign. I think the other thing we have to watch is our community's vaccination rate, our percentages. That's going to tell us a lot about our risk. So as long as our percentage rate is still relatively low, I think we need to follow the guidelines.
I mean, that is one thing worth emphasizing, that our community rate is lower than the state rate. Our county rate is lower than the state rate. And if people really want us to move into a place where more and more people can't wear masks, more and more people will need to choose. They can't be forced, but choose to get vaccinated. And it's a reality that a lot of people don't want to hear. But it is actually scientifically true. So unless there's anybody who has any other opinions on this, should Dr. Youngberg take that we are in approval of abiding by the state rules?
100%.
Yeah, I see everybody nodding their heads. I think you should feel assured.
Thank you. We got your back.
Oh, and don't forget that elections are coming up this fall for municipal offices, so there'll probably be an issue that'll come up on the campaign trail for folks. So, go ahead.
Ilda just said, we still have masks available in all the schools and stuff like that. We haven't depleted our supply or anything like that to worry about. I mean, my husband personally, every time he went to BJ's, brought a big pack. We have like 400 at my house if you need to borrow some or have some, but, and they're coming out of the woodwork right now, and we couldn't get any at the beginning. But we still have PPEs and stuff like that as needed in our buildings for teachers and our staff and our students.
We absolutely do, and based on what the State Department of Public Health determines will happen in the fall, we'll order more, accordingly. So, because right now there's sort of a debate. The older kids that could be vaccinated could potentially be without masks. So there may be some schools required, this is the whole debate, some schools required to wear masks where others aren't. And so I don't want to place a giant order and then find out that half the district is not required. So that's why we're anxious to get a decision. But we definitely have a supply in the meantime, so we're definitely okay. But thanks for offering what's in your storage.
It's all still sealed.
I think they keep going back and forth, because I read something, and then 2 days later, I read something different. And the first something was, if the kids are older, because I guess 12 and over, they can be vaccinated, and if they are, they don't have to wear a mask in schools. And then I read something else, that it's up to the schools to decide whether.
Well, right now, it's up to
or
the
not.
state to
So
tell the schools.
I do think that there was something in the CDC's, the Center for Disease Control statement, that suggested it was a school decision, but that doesn't mean it's a Connecticut school decision. That's CDC's recommendations about what should happen, but our state has not made a decision yet about what should happen in the Connecticut schools. But I do think that you're right, that there's something in their statement that suggests it should be locally decided. But Connecticut has to make that decision for our schools.
Well, that's a good point of clarification. And if anybody needs hand sanitizer, like Tracy, I have an entire trunk full of it out front. If you'd like to take a box. I tried to unload it to the schools, but they had too much already, so.
We're fine.
It's so funny, because last year you couldn't find it.
Right. Is there any other thing on this topic before we move on to public comment? I want to remind folks, if you would like to speak during public comment, you can call in at 860-465-2513.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
I have two,
absolutely.
actually. One, if this is going to be classrooms in the not-too-distant future, where are we going to meet?
That's a great question.
They're working on it.
I
We're
know.
working on it. We believe it's going to be at the middle school, and we're trying to figure out where at the middle school that's going to happen, but that's what we think is going to be the central location. Although I did like the idea about moving it around. It gets a little complicated, but that could happen too. So more to come on that.
And then secondly, Dr. Youngberg, and I already gave her a heads up, sent an email this afternoon to us about start times. And I've asked in conversation, I didn't formally ask her, but to have a conversation about the start times for the high school. They're starting at 7:20 a.m. and every study in the world tells you that that's the worst time, and any teacher who teaches high school will tell you that they have zombies at 7:20 a.m. And so we had a brief text conversation while I was getting ready this evening when I saw the email, and I said, is there other options to, I know sports are important to our students, and I know they're important, and we have to kind of work with that, but education is important to her, and we have to make sure that our kids are ready to learn in the morning as opposed to ready for sports in the afternoon, and I just didn't know if there can be some kind of middle ground found, and we do, compete with other schools that get out at different times and stuff like that. So I don't know if the board is willing, or the chair is willing to indulge a conversation at the next meeting, or if that's something that we want to, have a conversation about going forward. I know we set the calendar and stuff like that, and I just want to advocate for our high school students whose bodies are telling them to stay in bed and get some more sleep. I have to be to work at 7 o'clock in the morning, and, I'd love to go in at noon, but when your employer's open 7 to 5, noon isn't really an option to start your day. But we could push this back a little bit potentially for our high school students and give them the sleeps that their bodies needs, where the little darlings are usually up at the crack of dawn. So I don't know if there's something that can be done differently there or not.
Do you want to respond at all, Dr. Youngberg?
So, being the mother of a teenage son, I am not in disagreement. What she's saying is 100% true, but it's a deeper issue than just making the statement about changing the time. It is true. We're scheduled to start our high school at 7:20. That is not. It's early, but it's not unusual. Most high schools start before 7:30. That's a common practice, and it has to do with the fact that high school students have the biggest option for after-school activities, and I know that's not supposed to be making the decision, but it actually is all over the country. It's the way it comes down, so it's not a simple fix. There's also a transportation consideration. One of our schools has to go to school early because they share buses, so we have to start the school day at some point, or we'll be going to school till 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So I don't disagree that the in terms developmentally, those kids in high school could use more time and would be much happier waking up later. But I think to make that decision, I think if it was easy to fix, then other high schools would have fixed it already. It's a bigger issue than just let's move the time back and see what happens. So what I said to Tracy in my text was that I would get a list of high schools that start before 7:30, so you could see that Windham is not alone in this issue. And even though the science says the kids should be sleeping, it's a bigger issue. It's not just going to be an easy fix. And I also want to point out that in the winter months, if we were to put the elementary kids who are up at the crack of dawn, because they really are, right? Everyone knows the little ones. They would be outside at the bus stop when it's dark in the morning, and I don't think anybody wants that either. So there's other implications that would, again, it's the reason why most high schools start before 7:30 is there's many other things to consider. So that's where we are. But I'm happy to provide the board with a list of high schools that start before 7:30 so you can see that Windham High is not alone in this pain.
I would just say that I think that there are schools there are Board of Ed bodies that have really taken this issue on and tried to figure out what to do about this. It would be interesting to hear how they made their decision and what process they went through to do that. I don't think it's like something that we can wave a wand and do a quick fix on, Tracy, but I think we should have a discussion about it at the board level, but I don't think it would be something we'd be implementing right away. So
sorry.
maybe we could set aside some time at a future board meeting to have that discussion if people would like that to happen. I don't know what other board members think.
I agree. I want to support Tracy's request of having a conversation about this because of the high school and the age and what happens. But I think all those angles need to be looked at, not only transportation and having the kids out, but I do know also that parents go to work, and having, for example, at 8:45 early childhood or 8:15 might interfere with them showing up at work at 8, while the high school kids can monitor themselves while waiting for the bus. So I think it has been established in our society to have these type of schedules, but I think it's time, based on science, to relook at that, and maybe we can be a trendsetter. But
So obviously I work for all of you, so you can tell me how you want me to proceed. Just let me know what you need me to do. But I do think we'll be opening a bigger can of worms. And the minute you say that you're going to impact high school athletics, for example, or high school after-school programming, there's going to be people who are very unhappy. So I know that to be true, not only in this community, but in many other communities. So I just want everyone to be prepared, but I'm willing to do whatever the board asks me to do.
That's why I was suggesting if we have a conversation about this, we set aside the time to do it, realize that if we're going to change it, it's not going to be a quick change, and that it would be helpful to hear from another district or two about how they went through their decision-making and what happened there. I mean, we'd have to find those districts.
Do you know who I should be looking into and which districts have done this? Okay, so we'll do some research.
No, I think, let's talk offline. I think I may be able to, I can't remember right now, but I
Fair
think
enough.
there was one in Connecticut that was seriously considering it.
so maybe we should form a little study group about this issue before we even bring it back to the board. Just saying. Like to do the
Does somebody
research.
want to volunteer? Are you volunteering,
I
Katina
am
or Tracy?
volunteering.
Let's see what Dr. Youngberg brings back, I think, to start,
Okay.
and then we can use it as I'm not asking, and I hope you know I meant the text completely respectfully. I told you I would never hit you with something at a board meeting and stuff like that, because I was accused of doing that before for various reasons. But the text was just simply is there a way to start changing this? Let's start having the discussion. I don't mind us being a leader, and I know having had kids that have gone through the high school, there have been times they've had to leave for athletic events during 7th period or 6th period. State swim meets are scheduled at all different times and stuff like that. He had to leave at 10, Andrew had to leave at 10 that I recall one time for a state swim meet. So these things happen from time to time. And occasionally if a team had to leave, during 7th period or something like that, that might be appropriate. But a lot of games are in the evenings. Football games are on Friday nights. Basketball games are 6 or 7 o'clock. So it doesn't always impact, but it does often enough that it's something that we have to take into consideration. But I'd like to give our students the best opportunity to be awake when they're learning as opposed to still asleep. And, one of my children took ADHD medication, and it wasn't until 2nd period that stuff really kicked in. And I'm not promising if we push school back that he's going to take it any earlier. But, but I understand that there are real parameters around their ability to learn at 7 o'clock in the morning. Because I walk into work with a cup of coffee, and, unless there's a customer waiting there, don't talk to me for the first half hour. So
Well,
thank you for the indulgence, though. I appreciate
different
it.
people have different clocks. So I think let's talk about getting some information together and having a discussion about it at some point when it makes sense. Okay?
And do some research about what schools
Right.
have done that.
Right. We're not going to have a discussion without having some information to share.
Okay.
Oh, I did want to mention, I forgot to remind you all that the board self-evaluation is supposed to happen in August, and we're going to set aside time to do that. But the tool for that was in everybody's packets for today, and I'm asking you to look at that tool and, be prepared to do the work in August. Because if we're going to keep to our timeline of evaluation and whatever, we have to do our part to do our self-evaluation in August. Okay? Great. Anybody called in on public comment? No? Okay.
Could I just say one thing about public comment? So for those watching at home, I just want to remind you that we have a Google survey that you can take if you have information you'd like to share about how the district should spend its ESSER 3 funds. We also have a dedicated email and the opportunity for you to speak at any of the upcoming board meetings to share how you think the district should spend its ESSER 3 funds. We've already received more than 200 responses, closer to 250, right, Janet? I know you've been keeping track. So we're going to compile all those responses, and I'm going to share the basic categories with the board and then walk you through my thought process about how we're going to fill out that application. So we are going to include the community's feedback in how we move forward. So we just want to encourage people to share their thoughts.
Are we still in public comment? Can I say something?
Yes.
Yes. I would like to also congratulate the district for the initiative of bringing the teachers from Spain. I'm going to be one of the hosts for the teachers, and this Friday I'm meeting with teachers that I have never met here in the district to coordinate because we have the same family. I would like at some point to have the board hear about this fantastic initiative and the people who are coming, and we are going to need anything from furniture to cars. So if you want to talk to Neil.
Can Neil give you a quick little overview so
Oh,
the
yeah,
board's aware?
sure.
And so I want to thank Neil.
I know about that.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
We are going to formally report it out to you, but I'll
Okay.
let him give you
I
the overview on it.
apologize, I
So
thought-
just so everybody knows, in an attempt to recruit, coming up with many different ways to recruit teachers for our bilingual program, we've reached out to the Spanish consulate. We consulted with a couple districts that have done this who also have bilingual programs. So we have currently, I believe it's 9, it might actually be 10 teachers across our different buildings coming in different capacities to teach. Is part of a 3-year visa. In order to do it, they have to teach a certain percentage in Spanish, like I think it's 80% or more. I think we worked it to be 50 for our Dos Rios program because that's how the program is set up. So we're, like Katina said, there's been outreach to communities. I want to give a special shout out to Amy Finsmith and Laura Perez Handler, who have been communicating with the Spanish consulate and the teachers, and we'll definitely do a more formal workup. They're coming in August, but the part of the thing too is it's just another way to make sure we have teachers to teach in that programming. Sometimes people have mentioned staffing is a challenge, so we're trying to think of every which way we could provide staffing to support this program. And we're really excited about it, by the way.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak during public comment? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn at 8:09 PM.
I move, we move.
Amen.
Meeting adjourned.